I don't know if that's a Macy or Miranda that's on as town clerk, but whoever it is, can you tell me if we're expecting any other SAB members to join us besides who's here?
Yeah, it's Miranda. And let me see. I did ask Macy. So Chris and Patricia are absent, and originally Alan didn't think he was going to make it, but he sent us an email he was. Although I would maybe recommend just starting without him since he was a bit unknown.
Okay. Then we will call the meeting to order at 6:46 p.m. And I'm going to, if my computer will work. We can go ahead and start with any board member updates of those that are here. While I get my computer working and my agenda working. Alan,
Do we have a quorum?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Interrupting. Yeah, no worries. Do you want to let us know what date you're going to the BOT for Guardians of Nature?
Oh, now you're going to make me dig through my calendar? Hang on.
Yeah.
Let's see.
July 18th.
What's that, Miranda? July 18th?
Yep,
Okay.
July 18th.
Okay. So the Guardians of Nature item will go before the BOT on July 18th. It would be great if any other SAB members can attend that meeting as well, just as support, and speak up during public comment if you feel so inclined. Chris is not here, and I don't think we have any updates on renewable energy, but I know Leah has some stuff to talk about on that front. What's the update on the Pi EV plan? How's that going? Is there anything we need to be aware of?
Yes, so Pi and Boulder County submitted the CFI grant as a regional EV grant on our behalf. So that includes Lafayette, Longmont, and Nederland. That's the charging and fueling infrastructure grant. So Pi just submitted that. We should know by the end of the year if we were awarded that, and it's a 3-year project. It's a very large grant. I think it's a $7 million total, and of course we're a small part of that, but it would go towards another EV charger in town. Right now we have that slated for the B&F parking lot, but we're not held to that specifically. So once we have the details of that, we can work with Tebow Properties on whether or not that would work in the parking lot. And if not, we could identify another location. I don't know exactly when that award will come out, but the details there are that we would have some engineering support, community outreach support, and sorry, I'm pulling up my notes here. Project management, and Boulder County offered a 30% match on our behalf, which is awesome. So that would be RFP heavy in 2024, then that would go to infrastructure in 2025, and then actual construction in 2026. So more to come on that. And then we also are receiving the gap analysis next Thursday. It's under review with Boulder County right now. So we'll get some more answers on where we are in terms of our renewable energy, mostly residential. There's a little bit of commercial in there as well from PACE, but where we are now and where we want to be in 2025 and where the gaps are and how we might accomplish that. So more to come next week when we get that. And then we also have an EV event planned for this fall, which will be sponsored by Boulder County, Drive Clean Colorado, and probably some local partners. We have the EV mechanics that are here locally who are going to bring their more exciting projects to showcase. We'll have some public outreach and education involved there too. And so we don't have a date for that set yet, but that is coming up. And that's it on the pie front. So I'll pause there. Any questions? Okay. Back to you, Melody.
Thank you. And then I do see that Larry is here. Is there any updates on the zero waste front? We will try to appoint somebody to the subcommittee later on in the meeting, but any other updates you want to give us?
Hi, I'll come on camera while I'm talking, but I'm off camera to take notes for this meeting. So we did not get our grant for our bear-resistant composters. That was a disappointment. Leah did fantastic work, and I just want to sort of give her a shout out just for the hard work. I've done these grants before. I know what it's like. You slave away. And then you're hoping for yet more work if you win. So it's always an interesting dynamic. And then you get to be disappointed when you don't have more work to do because you've been rejected for your grant, which was so great. So I want to thank Leah again for that. And we actually have our sights set longer term on bigger grants that will do much bigger things. And this would be due to certain actions coming from the county and coming also from the state starting in 2026, possibly 2025. We'll see. So we're taking the attitude that we need to bring recycling and composting to the town of Nederland, and that just has to happen. And so it's a matter of when, not if. And so that's our attitude, and I'm really excited about our work going forward. So I just want to point out, I'm not actually leaving SAB fully. I'm just stepping out one circle back into the Zero Waste Subcommittee. And so I'm thrilled to be involved with that, and I'm looking forward to the future.
Thanks, Larry.
Great, thank you, Larry. So I think that covers our board member updates. So if Leah, there is anything else you want to update us?
Yes, more updates. So our community solar partner, US Solar, as you know, has been on hold for a few months. And after a few follow-ups, they finally replied to say that they have not figured out the bugs in their system, and they proposed using the old system in the meantime if we really want to get going. And I expressed our concerns with that and that we weren't comfortable moving forward with the way that the system is now. We were really hoping that they would streamline that process since we've had some issues in the past with getting people signed up. And again, we only have 30 of the 300 signed up. And so as we were working through those issues, they were asking, you know, how could we make this work now? And of course, because we've been delayed 3 months, we've missed half the summer to promote this. And so now, and Miranda and I have agreed on this, we're looking at other partnerships and looking to potentially drop US Solar altogether. That's not to say that those 30 subscribers wouldn't still count towards our goal, but I am in talks with a few other partners, especially locally here in Colorado. There are a couple that I'm talking with next week to see if we can get something else on the books that's a little more more organized and will move a little faster than we've gone so far. So any questions on that front before I continue?
Yeah,
Okay.
I had a quick question. Is anything contractually signed with US Solar in regard to the 30 people who've already signed up with them, or could they possibly move over to a new community solar program?
They can. There's no penalty to quit. I think the drawback could be asking them to do something in addition to
Might have
move to
some
another
dropout.
program. Yeah, I wouldn't want to mess with that. But yes, if they want to move to another program, we certainly could do that. And it might work if we can get a better discount through another provider. We were at around 5%, which is not very enticing. So if we can get a better discount through someone else and somehow make it easy for people to switch over, I'm sure we could do that.
Have you been
And it's really easy
preliminary
to,
shortlisting?
Sorry, say again. Whoever wants to go first.
Have you shortlisted any groups to date, or just still scouting out?
Yes, I have. There's a program through Namaste Solar, which is a great local partner. It's called Power Market, and they're technically not based here, but because they go through Namaste Solar, I'm exploring them. And then Pivot Energy is another that was recommended to me by a solar expert out of Boulder. And then there's one more I reached out to today that I can't remember the name of. So yeah, I'm putting some feelers out and seeing what people will come up with.
Great, thanks, Leah.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Patricia. Sorry I joined late. It's been a long day. Are you talking about which solar program are you talking about?
This is the Community Solar Garden through US Solar.
Yeah,
which has
I signed up for that last year
me too.
through our Sustainability Advisory Board and then I got an email this week. They're like, "Oh, your solar garden is being built." Da, 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 da. So can you just quick recap what's going on? I just missed the part of it.
Sure. Yeah, I also received those emails, and it seems like I get one every month that says it's coming, and it's been probably 6 months now. So they said that they were upgrading their system since we've had some complaints about how burdensome the system is. It's multiple steps, multiple emails, not really building a lot of trust. And maybe Patricia, you could speak to that experience too, if that matches your experience. But it's been paused for 3 months, and now they haven't really been able to figure out the bugs in their system. So they want to go back to the old system, and we've basically wasted 3 months that we could have been promoting this. So I am exploring other partners and looking to potentially drop US Solar altogether. Rob was asking if we would keep those 30 subscribers, and the answer is yes, we can. And all of those subscribers, as you know, Patricia, are free to move elsewhere. So if we get a better discount somewhere else, those subscribers could move that way, but those 30 subscribers would still count towards our goal. So I don't know that it's a negative to keep them with US Solar, but the relationship's not really great right now.
Okay, yeah, and I can't remember. There was a gal who came up and I met a different program. She was at Wild Bear maybe last spring or even earlier, who was promoting a similar solar community garden program. She might be a good option. And then I'm happy to reach out to people in the energy office, some of my colleagues, and see what they're recommending. And I think just given, all the new tax credits and federal funding coming in, maybe we can find a program that's even more beneficial for Nederland and can help the town meet its sustainability and renewable energy goals.
Yeah, please feel free to send that other person my way as I
Okay.
all the
I'll
same.
look it up. I think I still have her contact info.
Thanks. And Rich, I think you were wanting to say something.
It's pretty, so I withdrew from the program today, actually, simply because looking at how much power I'm generating with my new system, I'm going to be, generating more than I use, so I don't really see need to be a part of it. But one thing is, I don't think that we're really ever going to get much community pickup on this, as long as it's this sort of separate type thing where you have this separate account, you still get an Excel bill, then you get this thing from US Solar or whoever, and it just seems extremely cumbersome and complicated. People are used to getting a utility bill, right? Up
Yes.
here, people are used to getting one bill for electric and gas all together, right? So as long as it's going to be more complicated than that, I don't think people are going to like it.
Yep, I agree. And the financial aspect that you have to give some of your financial information was hard for me, even as a supporter of this, right? I don't really want to provide more of that to a third party. And there was some pushback there too. So yeah, that's something I'm vetting in our future partners.
I could speak to this very quickly if you want, because Erica and I went through this deep in the trenches about any possibility of getting around this individual sign-up process. There is none. It's as cemented in on the legal basis as it could possibly be. We looked into it. So we are stuck with this individual sign-up program. So I just want to reiterate that part. And there's no way around it. And it's this or basically nothing. What I think is needed, I'll stop after just saying this, but what I think is needed is money to hire a consultant, coordinator type person, and maybe an assistant to Leah or something like that, coworker, who would run a sort of outreach canvassing program. I can tell you, you're talking $25,000 just to even bring somebody in and sit down and look at the program. However, if you roll out 300 subscriptions or changes, which is what's needed at the basis, and you're paying $25,000, that's $80 per changeover. And in the world of this kind of thing, rolling out new markets, that's dirt cheap. So it would have to be with a volunteer core of people, along with this hired professional coordinator who would just come in and hit the road running. And it wouldn't matter to her where she was. She knows how to do these kind of things. So she's in Nederland, Colorado. She has 600 possible people to market to. She needs to get 50% of them. She knows that, and she does it. And then we have achieved our goal by 2025. So where's the 25,000 going to come from? To me, that's the issue at this point. It could be a grant, but it'd have to be an emergency grant with a fast turnaround time. And so I'll stop right there. But Rich, I understand your frustration on this. And Erica, believe me, we went through this tooth and nail, and there's no way around it.
I agree. And it could be easier than what we have right now. Even if there are individual signups, it feels like the most complicated it could possibly be right now through that program. But I also think if we got a grant, we would miss the rest of this year to pursue this, because we wouldn't be awarded that grant funding, I assume, by at least the end of the year. So yeah. Also, we have Peter now as the public engagement manager, so hopefully we'll have more support on the outreach side. And also, Rob, thank you for that link. I think that's the same company that now owns US Solar. So
verbiage was similar. Yeah, it was a little bit suspicious.
Yep, I think it might be the same. But I just remember the other one is Jack Solar Garden in Longmont, which I did explore in 2020 personally, and they were more expensive than just my Excel bill. But I think but they do offer group discounts. So that's the third one that I'm talking with.
Yeah. To address some of Larry's concerns, there's certainly maybe not within Excel's territory, but there are projects kind of like this that are already built that we can just have people sign up for, with a sign-on bonus being the carrot. So, as much as the impetus is to, have a project that's feels like it's owned by, or partially owned by the town, there are options like this out there where you can, a project's already built and you can sign up for, a portion of it to offset your utility bill. But typically with those types of arrangements, you don't get as attractive of savings as you would otherwise.
Yeah, Jack's is technically one of those because they've already built the solar garden and it is more expensive, typically. Melody, were you chiming in also?
I was just saying we have a good relationship with Jack's Solar Garden. And like you said, the reason we didn't go with them all the way back in 2020 was just because it was going to come at a premium basically to customers. They were going to have to pay more than what they're currently paying. And we just felt that philosophically renewable energy should not be more expensive than gas. And we didn't feel comfortable promoting that as a board as much as we like the fact that that option is out there. Because really we want to be able to keep prices the same and or lower them with renewable energy. And then the other question I had, and maybe this is part of, what Larry was saying, him and Erica already looked into, but is there a way for like us to help people sign up with like an iPad or a laptop or something like that and help people go through that form so that they're not dealing with it if we do have to use the old form?
We did explore that also. Because of all these complications, we asked, can we just sign people up? And there is an issue with PII in that we're not supposed to collect that. I have to look back at my notes as about what the complication was. But on the other side, the income eligible program, which is in tandem with this, that is allowed. We have someone who helps people with, I think, Medicaid and some other low-income programs who was signing people up for the solar garden at the same time, but it doesn't count to the same on the same program. So even though it goes towards our total goal, it's not for this exact 300 subscriber goal. Larry, do you remember what the details were on that PII issue?
Yeah.
I don't exactly. That is an important component, I think. If there were a way to explore being able to hold people's hand going through this process, I really do think that overall, if we're thinking 300 subscribers, and so we need to approach more than 300 to get 300. So we're talking hundreds of people. And I just remember thinking, wow, isn't there a way that we could do this? Like taking them, because they're going to need it. A lot of them are. And to me, this is really the hard part of this individual subscriber thing is these people, they're so busy in their lives. And, if you can get them to carve out 15 minutes for you, and they're going to focus and they're going to think about their bill. Oh my gosh, you've gotten a lot for 15 minutes. So I don't know. This is why, I'm thinking professionals who do this kind of thing, and they're so far ahead of us on this. They already know this stuff, but they cost real money. And so what I'm concerned about is time is running out, and we can reinvent the wheel, but so I don't want to be too negative, but it's kind of like, Eric and I went through all this a year ago. We really did all this stuff. And, we were like, uh-oh. And then US Solar, it looked like maybe, a new website. And so, it was like, okay, let's wait and see. Now that's crashed. and there's no reason to blame them. You know, US Solar, it could cost them $500,000 to put up that website when you have to reboot their whole system. I mean, I know what I'm talking about in this stuff. It's expensive. And so that's what probably they hit the road. They go, we're not going to spend $500,000 on this. And so, okay, I guess, I don't want to, it's just like, something new needs to happen here. I mean, honestly. I'll stop there, but Leah, if you have anything to say, I'd love to hear it.
So part of the complication there too, I think, is that the company was bought by another company mid rebrand, etc. And so I think our rep is even less engaged, and a lot of this is out of his hands as well, because there's another company coming in to dictate how that goes. But I just had an idea while you were talking, Larry, maybe our rep came out for a couple events in Netherlands, and maybe if we can't collect people's PII, perhaps whatever partner we choose to go with next, maybe they could come out and physically sign people up at a couple events. No, Nicole's shaking her head no.
No, because PII still applies regardless of who. It's the handing over of personal information. It will still 100% apply to them as well.
Okay.
You're having a human interact, you're having a human in the middle, taking that information, it'll still apply. They won't want to take on that liability. At least if I were running the business, I wouldn't want to take on that liability.
That sounds like what the issue was before. So
yeah. So a couple of thoughts. There is the issue of the fact that there's two bills, or there's the Excel, and then there's what we would say with whatever entity, whatever solar garden there is. So, but that aside, if we were just looking at the workflow of what it takes to sign up, and there were two pieces, or two factors that probably caused the most friction. One, you had to log into your Excel account, which no big deal. I mean, if you have that information, right, that should be pretty easy for you to get. But the other was actually entering in the data of your, how much you make and everything. I think that process might be a little bit more streamlined if it was some sort of an authentication. And you see this now when you go and apply for a bank loan or whatever. It does a credit check automatically, right? There is an authentication that you are who you are, and it collects all the information on the back end of how much you make, where you're working, all that kind of stuff. If that really is a critical issue, I would say whoever that you're exploring with, if they have automation in place that makes it maybe 1 or 2 steps instead of 10, 11, 12 steps, right? If they can just get the information that they need right off the bat instead of making users go through a lengthy process. So that's just maybe something to look out for.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, and Mayor Billy was halfway through the sign up process when US Solar did the rebrand, and so he's going to be our guinea pig, I think, with what, because he's experienced this one, and also would be maybe the first one to sign up with whoever we partner with. So hopefully we'll have a few people doing that, because I probably can't sign up again unless I cancel my subscription. But
right,
yeah, keep that in mind as I vet all of these potential partners. And I just want to also say, Larry, I know you mentioned going through this a year ago with Erica, and it's possible that things have changed in a year and that there are other partners available. And right, just like US Solar is redoing their system, hopefully others are doing that too. And it could be different now too, and certainly worth exploring.
My first thought is, all of these community solar projects have to go through Excel. So Excel could be a pretty good resource. Is there the touch point? Anybody who's building a community solar project has to be on board with Excel.
Yeah, I think I would say that Excel is disincentivized to assist with this program, based on my experience in working with them. That's not to say that Partners in Energy as a third party wouldn't be a good support, but Excel, for example, the rooftop solar campaign, which is separate from this, is stalled specifically because Excel is trying to charge customers with infrastructure upgrades in order to have renewable energy. And I expect that that will be similar here too, and that I'm not trying to make them sound like the problem, but they don't really necessarily want this to happen. They're forced to have this happen, but I don't know that they're in our corner of promoting community solar.
Very well said.
Yeah.
Very diplomatically said, and very
Thanks.
true. They're doing it because they have to, and so that's
Absolutely. They don't want their customers to switch from Excel to one of these new community solar gardens, because really what's happening is the community solar garden is taking customers away from them, even though it's operating under, and as Patricia said, they're mandated by the law to allow a certain amount of solar community gardens to come through, but they pretty much put a stall on everyone that they can. And part of the reason that US Solar is not online yet is because of various things getting stalled. In the beginning, months ago, it was stalled by Excel. I'm not sure what the stall is now, but it could be similar.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
I mean-
I don't think it's an accident that it's complicated specifically because Excel's involved.
exactly like it's even though like what Melody said, it goes through Excel, they are theoretically losing customers, and they're trying to figure out a way to maintain their profit, even though, like, as customers move from electricity to solar. So yep, I think we should all do what Rich does, just like do our own thing, throw solar on the roof, call it good, call it a day.
I would if I could. I have too many beautiful trees in the way. That's the only reason I'm on community solar. And there are a lot of people like that. And of course, Rich, I'm sure you could speak to the financial aspect that it requires as well.
It ain't cheap. It ain't cheap. Now, I did it a little more expensive because in addition to wanting solar, I wanted backup. So I have a battery as part of my system that can, as long as I don't like charge my car or run heavy appliances, I can pretty much be self-sufficient, except maybe in the dead of winter with my electricity. But you do get, I think right now, 33% back as a tax credit on your federal tax return. But no, it ain't cheap. And, getting it done takes a while. And I'm still waiting for Excel to put in a power meter for net metering. They don't seem to be in a hurry to do that.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
They will not be. And I just got an email at the carousel that all of our net meters or whatever that they've installed all over Colorado are not working correctly, and they're charging us too much, and it's a whole issue. So.
And one of the benefits of community solar is that renters can participate.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We have a lot of renters in this town.
Yeah.
This is great information, and I will relay this to the Colorado Energy Office. I work a lot with their deputy director, and so I will pass this on to folks there just so they're aware of what's going on. Because the state, in addition to Nederland, we're trying to, move to renewable energy 100% at 2030 and 2040. So like Excel can't be part of the problem. They have to be part of the solution, whether they want to be or not.
I just want to second that thought by Patricia really quick, because longer term, we need to bring in Eldora and all the businesses into a solar program. And the way that's going to happen is that Excel likes us and wants to work with us to grant us an entry in their upcoming RFP program, whenever that's going to be. It's going to be happening.
Yeah.
So, we're stuck with them. And so let's think about the positive things we can do with them. And they actually care about the idea of municipalities being friendly. And this kind of thing can actually, I mean, that they feel friendly vibes from. And it's weird, but this can make a difference when they are considering, you know, grant proposals for RFPs down the road. So, you know, I just want to put it in there. We're stuck with them. I want to second Patricia on that, and let's try and work with them however we can.
I think that's where Partners in Energy comes in, because even though they work for Excel, it's a separate, they're sort of the middleman that makes that magic happen. And so I feel that we're very fortunate to have that relationship as opposed to working directly with Excel, which I think would be harder. And also, quick question, Larry, is Eldora, does Eldora count towards our in-town goals? Because I thought that was a separate town.
No, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh.
We would need to put forward through an RFP a very big deal proposal to bring in businesses, all businesses, and that could include Eldora, who is champing at the bit, you know, or they were last year, wanting us to do something. So, but this is an entirely different program. It's the kind of thing that the Energy Subcommittee could take on, you know, as a separate, you know, study project. But gosh, right now, you know, with the 2025 deadline in front of us, I would say, you know, we know what we need to focus on right now. I just want to put it out there that, you know, Excel, they really are the big bear in the room, and we're going to have to deal with them.
Yep. Larry,
Yeah,
were you talking about the town of Eldora or Eldora ski area?
Oh, I'm sorry, Eldora Ski Area. Yeah, we're
Okay,
talking.
thank you.
We're
Yeah.
talking the businesses, all businesses.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, so right now, US Solar is just for residential. Their RFP does not allow businesses to join in to that solar garden. And that's the case with most solar gardens, is we cannot allow the businesses to sign up and join them. And so we were trying to get US Solar to put forward a specific RFP that would include the ability for our businesses to sign up for a solar garden. However, there's not enough energy used by those businesses to really incentivize anybody to build anything for us. And so Eldora, that uses, you know, what, 4 megawatts or something just by themselves, really pulls in that bulk of solar, and they really want solar. And so that's a good partnership. But what energy they use, no, does not count towards our 100% renewable goal. They're just a good partner because they have that bulk energy use to get us somebody to sign up all our businesses.
And we have a separate program for businesses also, which is PACE, Partners for a Clean Environment. I think I always forget what the acronym is exactly, but they were just here this summer going around the businesses, and they have helped Busey get their solar set up, for example, by helping businesses navigate those rebates independently. And so it is separate from and they work with Excel, but that's the business side that is helping with these infrastructure upgrades on the business side.
Yeah. Which again, we have a lot of businesses that rent their space and don't own their own space.
Yes, good point. Anything else before I go to my next update on this topic specifically? Okay, Rich says, let's move on. So there is a program under the Office of Clean Energy. It's the Energy Improvements in Rural and Remote Areas program through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which is $1 billion. And let me back up. We are eligible to receive up to 8 hours of free technical assistance from NREL in navigating that process, and not necessarily the application itself, but in strategizing the best way to utilize that money. So I met with them yesterday. We're getting our gap analysis, as I mentioned, next Thursday. And so we'll start that technical assistance right after that next Thursday. and this will be something that we discuss in the next energy subcommittee, but the funds are eligible for upgrading transmission and distribution lines, basic grid improvements, installation of geothermal heating or ground loops for heat pumps, also solar panels, though I don't think that would apply necessarily for Nederland locally, and also the installation of standalone microgrids. So that's a large array of things that we could pursue. So once we get that gap analysis, I think that will help us hone in on the best way to pursue that funding. But I think that will help also, maybe we could use that to offset the cost of a solar garden or other things. And I'm open to ideas. I will throw that link in the chat here too. And we have until late July. So it's coming up pretty quickly. I'm definitely moving on that fast. In there. But we are eligible as a small rural town to get some of this funding. And in addition, there's also a program through State and Community Energy. It's the EECB, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, which is either a grant or a voucher, and that is not due till January 2024, but that could help supplement this other program. The key piece that I was told by NREL is that what we really need to prove is that we have the support and expertise available in town to execute the program if we were to receive the funding. So let's say we want to build a microgrid. Yep, thanks, Rab. And I know this is complicated because it's through NREL/DOE, so you can't technically have your name on it, but just having partners that are willing to invest in this and just having the ability to be shovel ready should we get this grant funding is the key piece. And I will get more information about that next Thursday, but if anyone has ideas on the best way to utilize these funds or what we should really focus on, that's really what I'm seeking at this point.
Yeah, I've got a suggestion based on just talks that based on just being a volunteer for town for a decade now. But so the community center, finally has the backup generator, and that was a big part of it being an emergency shelter, because that is our emergency shelter location. But something that was discussed years ago, and we didn't have the funding at the time, and now hearing that there is some funding going for that, is putting the block of town that the community center is on a microgrid. And then in the case of power outage, in the case of emergency, etc., being able to welcome the rest of town to come charge their cell phones and take a shower and etc., etc., etc. And I think having the kind of emergency assistance piece might be a good grant pull for the money. And then, future plans would be to put the rest of town on other microgrids, but I don't think we could do the whole town with just the one round. But that's just an idea I'm throwing out there.
I love that suggestion. Yeah.
That's brilliant, Melody. Thank you. Wow. Fantastic. I can see a grant. My gosh, that's the best idea I've heard in a while. Thank you.
Yeah, and then if that works out, then we could build a case for future microgrids, right, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah, cascades. I was wondering what types of requirements are there for being shovel ready? I mean, obviously, there's no expectation that the town itself build infrastructure. So is there, is it like requirement of working with an installer of some kind, having them kind of in our back pocket, or is it about having town staff? What's the requirement there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I will get more information about that next week as they walk me through some of the tools available. Let me, 1 second, pull up my notes from our call. They said, how will the project be sustained afterwards, and making sure the project will yield viable benefits to the community? Can we operate and maintain projects after the award? And then replicability. So if partnerships can share their resources with us, so not necessarily from the town specifically, but if there's like a nonprofit that could help us, or things like that, basically we would need a blueprint of some kind. And the first aspect of the application doesn't even require us to have all those answers. We just need to have the concept fleshed out, and then the rest of that, quote, shovel ready, that wasn't really what they said, basically being able to support this in some capacity. And it seems kind of open-ended, but I haven't read through the pages and pages of the application yet, so I'm sure I'll get more structure there. But it's more like, is there a willingness and ability to continue this program? And so to Melody's suggestion, if it's the community center, is the community center willing to, say, manage and upkeep a microgrid, or do we have a resource somewhere that would fund that or support that?
Yeah, it sounds, from what you said, it sounds like maintenance, which can sometimes be offered by the company who installs, but not for free, right? So,
Sure. But if that's included in the grant funding, maybe it's as simple as that. Just they want to know that when they give us the money, we're not just going to build it and let it flop. There has to be some kind of plan set aside.
right, and I think that's great. It allows us to write a grant for more money, so that's fine.
Yeah. Yep. And I think the other program that I mentioned, secondary, could supplement that too, because it can go towards workforce development or things like that. So we could potentially do both of those in tandem and say we have this other program to support this one.
Yeah,
Any other-
definitely. If we can get grant funding for town staff and training for town staff,
Yes.
wonderful.
Yeah. I had my eye on that one too. Yeah.
But does, just a real quick question, does the training for town staff have to be in relation to the project, correct? Because yes, staff need training and they need support, but they need support in specific areas.
Sure. This is 40 pages, but it says
Okay, if you don't have the answer right now.
I haven't gotten there yet, but energy efficiency workforce training is what's specified. So I think that could apply however we interpret that, but I will comb that more thoroughly.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Mhm. Any other questions or thoughts on this topic, and to be continued in the next meeting for sure?
Yeah, another thought is there was originally a plan to put a heat pump at the new town shop building. But I don't believe that there is a heat pump there. So that if, microgrid is something that's not something we could do, I say that's another thing we could look at.
Great, thanks. Well, that's about it in terms of my updates. Of course, you can read my full update in my report there, but those are the specific topics that I wanted to discuss.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So now we are on to our action items, and I never officially welcomed you, Brad, so welcome.
Thank you, Melody.
And I believe Patricia is now a full member and not the alternate. Is that correct?
No, not yet. So
No.
Patricia actually hasn't submitted her application. You did get an application for someone who's interested, but the period doesn't close until next Wednesday. So these applicants will come before you in July for official appointment in August to be joining you as a board member in your meeting in August. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Okay, good.
So when we go through and make these SAB elections, it needs to be between myself, Alan, Rab, Nicole, and Rich.
Right, unless anyone's talked to Chris. I'm not under the impression that he's interested in a board official position, just he wants to be a regular board member.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. Although I would like to try to keep him the chair of the renewable energy subcommittee.
Yeah,
Because he's the one that made us do 2025 and not 2030.
that's fair.
And that's what Erica kept saying, and I'm gonna stick to it. Okay, so now since we have new members, it's a new year, we need to do elections for what the roles of SAB are going to be for the next year. So we've got two co-chairs instead of a chair and a vice chair. That was a rule made by SAB a long time ago. We have a secretary, and those are the official positions. And then while we are here, I thought it would be good to just kind of reaffirm what our subcommittee chairs are going to look like. So if we want to start by putting forward nominations for a new secretary. Or if anybody wants to throw their own hat in the ring. I will gladly be secretary if somebody else wants to be co-chairs.
So I am just going to automatically exclude myself from these positions because of my appointment on the BOT and the various projects I've got there. So I'd say the rest of you can duke it out.
I had my mind on energy subcommittee chair.
Am I allowed to nominate people I nominate Rab as the energy subcommittee chair.
Great.
Second.
But Melody was needing a secretary.
Yep.
So I think that's what we need to fill first.
What are the duties of the secretary?
So you need to take minutes and then either send them to me or upload them into the drive when you're done. So taking minutes is just taking notes on what we talked about, taking roll call, noting who's here, noting who's absent.
So just let me mention that as secretary, it's not that hard if you do what I'm doing right now, which is you're taking live notes on Google Docs. At the end of the meeting, you're done. So all you've had to do is pay attention during the process. I will say it's a lot easier to do during a live meeting. For some reason, there's an informational spectrum that's much wider than on these little screens. And so as secretary, I did notice when I was sitting there with my computer at the desk at the community center, it was a lot easier than doing it right now, because sometimes you don't know exactly who's talking and the context is a little off and you miss things. So I will mention that, but in general, this secretary job, what I just described, that's it. The board is the hard work, and Melody does a great job. So I don't actually want to see her have to be burdened with secretary. That's my own, as a departing board member, that's my opinion. She does such a great job as our chair that, let's not put secretary on her. So I want to ask somebody else to be brave. It's Google Docs. You just load it in your apps. It's not hard. You just open it up like I have right now, which I'm going to go back to as soon as I stop talking. So it's not that hard to do. What Melody does is the hard work, and we should be really grateful to her.
Can I suggest that whoever takes this on just uses a robot to summarize the meeting?
Yeah, transcription, right?
Yeah, I mean,
AI is amazing these days. The Dr. Amadei on Saturday was showing us this AI that analyzes conversations. It highlights the main topics of discussion. It's amazing.
yeah, I've got we use a couple of products just for my own work. Otter AI is one of them. But it records your meeting and then summarizes it, basically, what we would call our minutes or whatnot. And so, there's even kind of this thought in my mind of like, do we need a secretary appointed, or can we just rely on somebody hitting the record button and summarizing it? And I don't know, maybe it becomes a shared responsibility, right? I'm just kind of throwing some different ideas out there, but whoever does take this, I would say use a robot.
And I also just add, though, that minutes don't have to be that. Minutes just have to capture action that occurred. So, well, yes, I very much value some written minutes. All it is call to order, who was there, what actions did you do, and adjournment. That is all that's legally required. So we don't need to make them as robust as they are if that's not of interest to SAB, because you have not only the recordings, but now you have YouTube Live.
Yep.
It just legally, we have to have something that documents the actions that occurred throughout the meeting.
Well, and so what I will say is that while that is the legal requirement, as you know, being on the board for a long time now, it's really helpful when you send out minutes a week after the meeting and everybody has to read them and remember what they talked about. And often we may not have action items, but we do have, okay, so-and-so needs to follow up on this and this person needs to follow up on this. And having that in the minutes is very important to board operation, even if it's not a legal requirement.
I will second that, absolutely. But what I'm thinking, thank you, Nicole. I'm thinking AI is right there for us. Why don't we use it? That's what Nicole is saying when she says robot. She's talking about an AI program.
Yeah.
But the thing is, and this, I've actually had to use this when I've had to go back through minutes to see what we did at some point. You need to see the minutes organized by the agenda item. And so the AI transcriptor needs to be smart enough to know that. And so to know that, and so that's where the AI program would be like listening to Melody as she's talking. And the AI would be saying, okay, now we're on, action items. And so now it's going to list that properly under action items. And that really is kind of important. It really is. But these programs are out there, but somebody does have to pull one in and give it a try. The thing is, though, once we get it going, it'll be heaven. It will just be heaven. You won't have to do anything. AI is smart enough to figure this out, and they'll be right there for us. And we almost won't need a secretary anymore. How fabulous that would be. But there is a little bit of boot work that needs to be done to make that happen. So I'll stop there, but this job is not that hard already, but Nicole is absolutely correct. We need AI as our partner here.
Okay, screw it. I take it back. Can I just be the secretary and just utilize a robot?
I
Nominate
can
myself.
also offer one more thing that WebEx does transcribe, so we can just send you the transcription. You don't need to do a separate AI.
So does the transcription also take into account who's talking, Miranda?
I have to ask Macy. Macy is much more familiar, and so maybe if you are going to be the secretary, we could take this offline and just figure out what WebEx can do, or if it makes sense just to do your own AI.
Sure.
I believe it does.
I think it does too. I feel like that's how Macy ends up doing her notes. She goes back to the transcription, but
Yeah.
I've never used that feature, so I can't say for certain.
So the
I would
only
imagine there's an AI program though that makes it a lot easier than the WebEx transcript.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
I'm sure.
totally is. There totally is. The other piece of it is the transcription is great, but again, you want to bubble up the most important pieces.
Yep.
And so that's where having an AI program that sifts through all like the non-important conversation and really just bubbles up like what we were talking about, action items or things where somebody has something to do.
Yeah, I want to say it was called Reader. I don't know if you have, I think you have that info, Miranda, because you were there.
Was it read.ai? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's one of a few out there. I haven't looked at that particular tool, but I can take a look at it real quick and, bubble it up against
Yeah,
some of the
pick
other
the
ones.
one you want to try out. I say let's nominate Nicole as secretary and we can go around a vote unless there's any objection. Hearing none, I will call roll on a vote. Rich,
Aye.
Alan,
Yes.
Rab,
Yes.
and myself is yes.
There you go. There's one less appointment or chair that you have to fill.
Yay. All right, so now we've got co-chairs, which has in the past, several appointments been really me and then somebody else if I'm out. But I'm not by any means hoarding the seat. I tried to step down the last 2 times and I'm happy to step down again if anybody else wants to step up for co-chair. So please put forward any nominations if you have nominations. We're looking for 2 seats. And yeah.
I nominate Melody as co-chair.
Second.
Second. Unless Melody, you don't want to. Is there a piece of you that wants to step down?
I don't want to be seen as a dictator, but I don't feel like I am. So I'm happy to continue doing what I'm doing.
Okay.
I'll continue to be on SAB for as long as people will have me. So
Okay. That's what's important, as long as it's still fulfilling for you.
all right. So I guess you guys can vote on me. So I will call the roll again. Rich,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Rab, and Nicole.
Yes.
Okay. And so we need to nominate another co-chair, or you can consider yourself a vice chair if you want to, which is just sending me agenda items that people might bring up, kind of helping with a task here and there that I might need help with, and stepping in to run the meeting if I'm not around to run the meeting.
I would be willing to put myself up as vice chair because I don't think anyone can be a co-chair with someone as excellent as Melody. I have run one meeting and it wasn't all that hard. So, but if anybody else wants to do it, I will very happily bow out.
I would be thrilled if Rich could be co-chair. That's just my opinion. Thrilled.
Vice chair.
Okay, vice, co, whatever. Yeah, assistant, whatever you like.
Rich, I thought your one meeting was very efficient, so I second that.
Miranda, can we, because our thing to make coach was passed by the BOT, not by SAP. How do we deal with this?
I was just gonna look at what the bylaws ended up, when we amended them, ended up saying. It says co-chairs. So we need to amend the bylaws in order to do a vice chair. I don't really view a huge difference, but technically, Rich, the title would be co-chair.
I don't want to be a pain, so okay, but I really think we need to be clear that it is the will of the board that Melody is the first among equals.
Okay, so we can note at the minutes that Rich will operate or will be titled a co-chair. However, operatively, he will act as vice chair.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
Okay, so we can call a vote on that. Alan,
Yes. Thank you, Rich.
Rab,
And
Yes.
Nicole,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. So we unanimously appointed our co-chairs and secretary. Alan, was there something else you wanted to say?
I was just saying thank you to everybody. And Melody, you've done a great job. So much appreciated.
Thank you, Alan. And I second that. Thank you, Rich and Nicole, for stepping up. I'm excited to see what AI can bring to our meetings. It's been just crazy figuring out what it can do for me personally in the last couple weeks. Like, it's just insane. Okay, so now we've got subcommittees to go on. And I know Rab said he wanted to step up and do the renewable energy subcommittee, which I think would be amazing. So let's call a vote on that. Rich,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
Nicole,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. And Chris can be relieved of his duty, although I will still hold him to the fact that he has to help. Next is we have our guardians of nature that we haven't officially been passed by the BOT yet. But I think we can just affirm that for now that's Rich and Alan. So we'll call a vote on Rich. Nicole.
Yes.
Alan.
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
And myself as a yes. And then we will call a vote on Alan. Nicole.
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Rab,
Yes.
and myself is a yes. And then we also have the Zero Waste Subcommittee, and Larry has graciously offered to continue running those meetings and putting together the agendas and helping out with that. But we do need an official SAB liaison to that subcommittee.
I'll just reiterate, this is really easy for somebody to do. Between me and Leah and our subcommittee members, there's almost nothing. So all the person for right now, I mean, if somebody wants to get involved, fantastic, but I know how busy people are. Technically, though, it does need to be a board member. So if he could just liaison with either Leah or myself, just to make a report to the meeting. I could also come if necessary to report. Leah can report. So this is this is the easiest job that there is for a subcommittee chair.
And this can't be me, correct? Just checking, right? Because I'm a.
Because it's a
My
subcommittee,
understanding
we
is it
need a
cannot.
SAB member there. I believe.
I think so, yeah.
Miranda.
Miranda, do you know?
Yeah, the bylaws don't speak to subcommittees. It just says, like, it doesn't,
No,
well, it says, yeah, I guess it does. SAB may form ad hoc committees as needed to take the lead in meeting project goals. Committee members shall be appointed by the chair and approved by the advisory board. So actually, yes, it would need to be a SAB member. Leah, you're everywhere. You're on every board.
Yeah, I would do it. Yeah, yeah. Rules.
Hey, Miranda, can you read that again? Does it say the SAB committee shall or
Says like SAB may form and shall be appointed. Committee members shall be appointed. I don't know if you can see my screen.
okay, yeah, now I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
They may form as needed to take the lead in meeting project goals, and committee members shall be appointed.
basically the Zero Waste Subcommittee can only be an official town organization because it's under the Sustainability Board, because we created it, because we had SAB members that started it.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, that still means because I'm not officially on the board. Okay.
Great.
Yeah, correct. And when do you guys meet, Larry?
We meet the first Wednesday of every month for 1 hour at the library, but also virtual. So can I just check again, Miranda? Are you absolutely telling us Leah could not be the chair?
Well, I mean, I guess it gets a little, just as committee members shall be appointed. I mean, sure, Leah could be appointed as the chair. I mean, this is not, I would argue this whole section is not very clear. And I don't think it's the end of the world if you chose to have Leah be the chair.
So my understanding, Miranda, is that there is deeper, I don't know if it's statute or if it's just like Robert's rules or something, but there is a deeper structure to what subcommittees are and how they're formed and where they get their power. And basically they cannot operate without the upper board having dictated how that happens, and really it's because there's one member of that board on the subcommittee.
And it's probably Robert's Rules of Order, because I don't think Colorado Revised Statute dictates committees, but probably, and I don't know, and so I'd have to research it more in order to say for certain.
I think Melody's correct on this. It needs to be a board member. When I heard her speak right now, it just sort of resonates. You can tell they want this person to be a board member. I mean, whoever they is, the larger process.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
I think that we're making too much of this. And I think that the purpose of the subcommittee really is to work on issues and then present information to the SAB to consider. And I don't know that we need to call it a quote unquote subcommittee. We could call it something else. And maybe it's not specified in the bylaws, but not everything we do is specified in the bylaws. So we could have whoever we want on I don't want to call it an advisory board because that's what we are, but and something along those lines that's not a quote unquote subcommittee.
Now, we're hearing from the lawyer on the board. Tell us this. So could I just ask Melody, are you uncomfortable with the idea, let's say, of it being Leah, knowing that she is, deeply connected to the board, even though she's not a board member? Could you imagine her just being the chair of the subcommittee?
I personally am not uncomfortable with that. No, I think my question for Rich is when it comes into though a subcommittee that is utilizing town staff time, that is putting forth grants in the name of the town of Nederland. That's why it has to have some connection to this like chain of command. And so maybe that is that we can stipulate that the chair is Larry, even though he's not on the SAB. But I just don't know. I'm not comfortable saying.
Well, I'm not giving any legal opinions because that is not my role with the town. But
Yeah.
all I would say is that one thing we could consider doing, and I'm just speaking as a board member here, one thing we consider doing is just sort of tasking Leah with the zero waste and requesting Larry to act as a consulting community member because of his vast expertise. And it's not a quote unquote subcommittee. It is just a town employee acting upon our request and Larry providing her with assistance and counsel.
And I mean, she's already there.
I think that's a great idea. We're getting too hung up on semantics.
I'm happy to ask forgiveness later if this is not, if we'll get in big trouble. But.
So I will make a motion that we disband the quote unquote subcommittee for zero waste, assign the tasks previously assigned to that subcommittee to, and I don't know, we need to name Leah because it's the position, what's your position, Leah? The
Sustainability coordinator.
This is assign the task to the sustainability coordinator who may seek out the assistance of a community member as the key community member to work with her on zero waste.
Miranda,
idea.
can the sustainability coordinator establish a task force of volunteers?
I don't know if that's in the job description that was created, but I don't see why not.
So just to resolve this, I can fill that role so that we don't have to make any disbandments of existing subcommittees.
Would you have to attend the zero waste meetings though, is the question, because that's probably when you're doing your other job.
Okay, so if it's during business hours, that makes it tough.
Yeah, it's 1 p.m. on a Wednesday, so.
No, I just don't think you do. I mean, I really don't. We have Leah. I mean, it seems to me.
How about this? How about we say we hold off on appointing a zero waste subcommittee person And Larry can continue to fill that role until we appoint a new one, because we have not appointed anybody yet. We failed. And next meeting, when we hopefully have some new SAB members and maybe some more information from Miranda, we can figure out what to do about that one.
Sounds good to me.
Well, it sounds great to me. You know, I sort of feel like everything's going well from our perspective on the ground with zero waste. So if we have Leah, we're already there. So all we need is somebody to just like report to the board. It's almost like a formality, but let's put it off till next time. That's what I would urge. And I'm happy to just chug along, and things are great.
I would agree, because everybody that's here kind of has a position. They have something they're doing. So I don't want anybody to be overburdened. And we do have Leah that attends those meetings anyway. And like I said, we're grateful to have Larry who is continuing to be active and doing that. And has done a great job, you know, of course, getting people to actually learn what zero waste is and how to recycle and how to compost. So that's all we got for this meeting. Does anybody have any other items?
I have one suggestion that is something I think Larry and I sort of discussed in casual conversation that I'd at least like to put on the get everyone to maybe think about. It seems to me that maybe it'd be a good idea for at some point the board for every year to pick one particular topic that is sort of our keystone issue, for lack of a better word, of the year, that we sort of, rise above others. Like, Larry and I were saying, solar should be like something that we really spend a lot of time and thought on. And make it sort of not our main emphasis because we have so many other things, but an area of special emphasis. It's just something that I thought was a good idea, and I just wanted to put it out there.
Rich, wouldn't that go back to the goals that we prioritized? And actually the solar garden, and getting 300 signups was the number one goal. And so could be considered that keystone topic, but wouldn't it kind of go back to whatever we prioritize as our goals?
I guess that's true. Yeah.
And so a couple of other things and just other business. Another trustee and I, so Trustee Coombs Esmail, Eric, he and I have applied to a MIT program. And this program is at the intersection of land use, sustainability, and virtual reality technology. And so basically what we did is we signed up Nederland to re-envision what it wants to be when it grows up. And it was very specific. It was, we articulated how we're this small mountain community. And it's been a lot of political debate in how we want to look, right, when we grow up, whatever that might look like, but that we are at this intersection of sustainability, wildfire, disaster prevention, and also how do we create political sort of synergy around all these topics. And so the idea was that by using virtual reality technology to reimagine what our downtown, specifically like what our downtown or what our central business district could look like through the lens of sustainability, is what we applied for. Now I say this in saying that we probably have a 0.001% chance of being selected by this MIT group, but nonetheless, we did go ahead and apply, especially because it would also intersect well with the fact that our comprehensive plan, we did get grant funding for that. and it will be going through the RFP process. And probably come this fall, we will start that process with the main specifically prioritizing our central business district. And again, like always looking at it through the lens of sustainability. So I just want to make everyone aware that that was something that he and I did. For those of you who don't know, he is a documentarian. So he works at the University of Colorado Boulder and is all into documentaries and really kind of expressing our shared lives through film. So that was his component to it. My component was the community and public engagement and sustainability piece. So just letting everyone know. And
That
then,
sounds really great.
yeah, it would be super awesome if we were selected. But the other piece, so was just getting through my email, and Alan, I saw that you had sent an email to me asking if the BOT needed any other information about the rights of nature. So I would say that the last time it came to the board, nobody was there to present, right? Which is why it's here. I think folks will need some education, and when that first came around, I think I was pretty new to both the BOT and SAB, so I couldn't help fill in some of the questions that they had. So it will require some education, but I think also one of the questions that's going to pop up too, which is what I think Larry has expressed, is, you know, the much broader scope of overseeing the watershed versus what we can oversee in, you know, just within sort of our jurisdiction or whatnot. I can anticipate that will be a question.
I'd also, I do think it's can be quite confusing
Yeah.
because we don't have jurisdiction over the watershed except for what is in our town boundaries. And, you and the BOT and my previous BOT, we talked about having a watershed ordinance, which would extend and codify our jurisdiction on our own watershed, which goes up toward the town of Eldora. So that would be, when that happens, if it happens, I hope it does, that's additional turf where we would monitor what's going on, and there'd be a variety of ways we could do that to be determined by further discussion by the Board of Trustees and the community. And some things that were kicked around was permitting processes or things of that nature. I don't know if there's any new information on that. But as Larry pointed out, the actual watershed is thousands of acres. We don't have the jurisdiction. We don't have the staff. That's not the goal of the rights of nature. As I've stated, and I've already been doing it for the rest of the watershed, would just be a communication role where we'll be in touch with the state of Colorado, the county of Boulder, and the city of Boulder, who do have jurisdiction. And we would be in touch with them about what is going on in the rest of the watershed. And as the county did last year, they helped us have a hearing on the mine, and that was very useful. In touch with the state, and they've kept us in the loop on the state regulations on the mine. And we got information from the city of Boulder about the status of the water quality. So it's basically two different activities, one only within our jurisdiction, and the other, which is a information gathering process, keeping BOT and the SAB and the town of Nederland informed on what is going on, not trying to be jurisdictional outside of our town boundaries.
Yeah, so the other thing that I would add, and we've talked about this before, is whether or not there'll be any type of monetary implication, any type of budget implication. But I would also say, is just like another thought that I'm having, is that I will be working with Mayor Billy and Miranda on the renegotiation of the IGA with Boulder County. Now, we've sort of put that on pause right now until we can get our comprehensive plan updated. But I would also ask this board and, Rich and Alan to be thinking if there are things, regarding the watershed that we would be wanting to negotiate with Boulder County about. Um, I've been running the goals session for ProSab, and that was also a request that I had made of them, is to be thinking that when we do go much more heavier into these negotiations, that we're thinking about some of those things to negotiate on. So that's just another little nugget I would leave you all with.
I do think it would be really important that part of the IGA include something stating that the county will be informing us and keeping us in the loop on any activities within the watershed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's just basically informational. The mine was approved by the county, by the state, without any input from Nederland 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
No information about it happening. We don't want that to happen again. I'm not picking on the mine because they're supposed to be doing the right thing now. But
Mm-hmm.
we just need to be informed of anything that's going on and be at the party at the table, any discussions on permitting within the watershed.
Okay. One last question as I'm thinking from the lens of a BOT, is there any other work or impact that you foresee coming to the BOT, other than approving this resolution? Um, anything else that you foresee, impacting us?
Well, it's really the watershed ordinance that you've been discussing that I think has been put on hold for a while. And
You're
that
talking
was,
about water rights?
well, there's water rights, which is a different issue. And there's a process going on there as well. But I'm talking about the watershed that extends to the town of Eldora and a potential ordinance that would give us a process whereby the town or could have a say in any activities within that watershed, which is in fact our watershed. But my understanding from our previous BOT discussions when I was on the board was first there needs to be a process to discuss that, look at all the different issues, and then potentially pass an ordinance establishing that restriction over just that piece of the watershed. And we have the right to do that.
Yeah, I think he's talking about, I can't remember how much it is, but maybe 3 miles, maybe?
I think
It's
it's
5 miles. And
5
Nicole,
miles.
that's the watershed ordinance we brought in May where we just said we were going to put it on hold for a little bit because there's so much going on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you, Miranda, because that brings me to my next point in that. So the BOT, we're going into our final prioritization sort of goals session tomorrow. Geez, it's tomorrow. And that is where we're going to lay out what the goals that we're setting for the goals for the next 2 years, basically. And I don't know how soon after that we'll be able to make it public. Hopefully even before your July 15th meeting. w- I'm sure you guys have sort of gotten to know how I feel about goals and making sure that what we say we're going to do is that we do it. And one of the asks will hopefully be, if I can convince my other board of trustees, is asking that the other boards say to kind of look at what those goals are, and not everything has to align, but a majority of things. And so if whatever we publish as a part of, hey, these are some of our priority goals, that you guys have an opportunity, Alan and Rich, and take a look at what those are and see how this rights of nature fits into that. I think if you can make an argument, that it really fits in well. And again, not everything has to, because we have to leave room for innovation and things that, maybe weren't on our plate, or, that was right in front of us. We do have to leave what I would call like 20% for some of those things, but where you can fit it into the narrative of the high priority items, I think it'll be an even stronger conversation.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So we would wait till you tell us what your overall goal
Yeah, one
are,
of the
and then we would
things.
give you input at that point.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've heard so many boards and over again, and even hence why, we as SAB decided to prioritize our goals, is there's so many things to do. There's 10 number one things to do at any given moment. And we have to be able to start getting away from that so that we can say, at these 3, maybe 4, at most 5 things are the most important. If we don't get them done, then what the hell are we doing? Right? We're just going to get same old kind of results. And so it really is sort of that opportunity, or what we're trying to do is stay focused, work on the things like infrastructure or whatnot, but then ask our boards, our advisory boards, help us execute on these things that we see as high priority. But I will also just give you a kind of a sneak idea. The things that I'm going to propose that we prioritize, every single one of them has to have a public engagement and a sustainability lens to them. Again, I don't know if I'll be successful, but anything that we do or prioritize should have sustainability riddled through it.
That's great. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's what, the sustainability board and really your role as our liaison, is to push for that and try to push that into town. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And, so depending on what's prioritized, and, it's kind of unfortunate in terms that, SAB, we created our goals, and, but you guys may take a look at some of the BOT goals and realize, okay, you know what, maybe there's a way for us to support in this. For instance, one of the things I'll be advocating for is infrastructure, like our roads and whatnot. And, I don't know if those are conversations that you guys have been a part of. Like, I mean, I don't know if, let's take, for instance, the dust suppressant that goes up in Big Springs, right? Have you guys been able to look at something like that? And even though we take our staff's recommendation because they are experts, I think that, if we're really serious about sustainability, we kind of want to take some of those things into consideration and have discussion. So, I mean, that's just one example, but
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I think overall, as a community, we've talked about multimodal transportation, and
yes.
we had a proposal for a major project in Old Town connecting up the RTD location to downtown. And Chris Pelletier presented it multiple times. And I don't know whatever happened to that. Maybe Miranda could say, but I believe he had grant money, and it was, creating bike and walking paths to make it easier to get from the transfer station to Old Town. And that included charging stations. And I haven't seen much of anything happen with that. And I think there was some talk about, needing to wait till the Kathmandu project got completed. But that was something that came before the SAB and the BOT a couple of times.
Are you talking about the First Street thing?
Yeah, you're talking about the transportation improvement project, which it's still happening. It's just had a lot of delays from Excel and concept plans with CDOT. So recently there was some movement on the poles, moving the poles to be able to build the sidewalk, and the EVs chargers we're working on. But the actual construction of the sidewalks will not occur until 2024.
Okay.
So
It looked like a great project. And
it
everybody
is.
said, let's do it. And it sounds like we just have some logistical issues.
So that actually rolls into something else I want to update this board on. So, as has been pointed out, Peter, our new public engagement manager, is in full force in his position. And one of the first things that he has tackled is the Engagement HQ platform. This was an idea that came out of Envision 2030 by the Public Engagement Subcommittee. And it's about putting some of these high priority projects on the website so that people can find the documentation, they can ask questions about it, they can get updates, they can actually subscribe to the updates as well. And streets and sidewalks oftentimes come up as like a very hot item. Like when the hell are the streets going to be graded? And what about whatever happened to paving the visitor center parking lot, right? He is collecting all that information and putting it into this new engagement portal. And so I say that for everyone to start looking, and we have Engage Nederland. That's kind of the new kind of tagline. It's on the front of the Newtown webpage. Please go there, start to see the projects, subscribe to some of these projects. And it's hopefully going to help disseminate information and also be hopefully the place where we can start to engage the public and give them the information instead of having them go to Nedheads to get the information. So that's another development that's happening.
That's great. So to your question about how involved SAB has been historically, I would say major projects like that improvement grant and the NedPeds project and the town shop when it was built new. Major projects like that have always gone through the Nederland planning process, which goes to all the boards, and then we fill out a SAB scorecard for that project. But something like the road surface, I mean, Chris and our board definitely talked about it, but I wouldn't say that we managed his decision at all. That was more a day-to-day decision of the public works director, because there's just such complicated stuff in there about the EPA dust factors and have you. So that's kind of been our historical involvement.
Cool. Yep. So that's what's going on with the BOT and some of the upcoming milestones or events you can kind of expect to start hearing about.
I think we talked about, and this was maybe a few months ago, maybe working on some sort of a slimmed down version of the scorecard for the BOT to be able to put things through this kind of sustainability lens. Does that still feel like a good idea?
I would almost say not just for the BOT, but maybe even for town staff. I don't know, Miranda, do the departments already kind of go by a scorecard?
No, that was where well, what happened is the department heads would bring their projects to SAB and then SAB would score it and then offer them that score.
But not necessarily as like a pre-checklist of like, hey, like these are the things SAB has asked me to take into consideration even before I bring it to the board, to the SAB board.
Yeah, that has not happened in a while.
Okay.
I don't remember the last project we did, the SAB did a scorecard on, but I feel like it's been a minute.
Now again, the TIPS project.
Yeah, I would say we haven't done any like large scale grant infrastructure either. So much of what we're doing is just day-to-day maintenance, and I don't mean this in a horrible way. I want to be really mindful that, bringing everything to boards really stalls staff's ability to do their job. So I want to be very mindful that it's selective of what types of projects come forward. I think it would be very challenging if it's our ability to do our day-to-day operations have to run through various boards and commissions.
Right. But I guess the idea being, okay, if we're sort of agreeing to this idea of sustainability, is there things that SAB would love to ask that people be mindful of when they're making those decisions? So even if it doesn't come to the board, at least like the department heads could say, oh, you know what? I remember on the sustainability checklist, it asks me to prioritize X over Y, or something along those lines. And then in the worst case, or not the worst case, but in the scenario that it does have to come to the SAB, they've already checked those boxes. And it can potentially be an easy decision-making process for SAB.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is that we had Chris Pelletier that was pretty, adamant about trying to do things sustainably when possible. And so I'm just not sure that it was a concern in the past, and I'm not sure what that's like with our new public works department. But how does town prioritize, like what are the town policies regarding like sustainable purchasing? Like I know that there are some like about town hall and things, but I don't know what there is that would specifically apply to public works or what we could do there.
There's really no policy. I think to your point, you had some leaders who put a lot of emphasis behind it, and I wouldn't say that Mark doesn't, but Mark and Emma were probably not nearly at the space that Chris was operating. I guess I don't really want to speak for them though. I think that this is an opportunity to invite them to a SAB meeting. I know Leah sat in on some of their department head public works meetings and let them kind of speak to their philosophies. And, I think that for anything to be successful, there has to be buy-in from both sides. So what I wanted to avoid, Nicole and I've talked about this a bit, is like this top-down model where SAB now tells the department heads how to do these things. It has to be that mutually we agree upon whatever these standards are, but that Nikki, Andrew, and Mark are at the table for those conversations.
Yeah, I think, and then just, kind of selfishly where this also I'm coming from on this is that if whatever the BOT prioritizes, and if I can convince the other BOT members that sustainability really should be riddled throughout, it should be kind of a glue or a cohesive process that unites all of these goals together, then we would need to kind of state what it looks like. What does sustainability mean? Like what actually does it mean to the town of Nederland? And maybe this is already published somewhere and I'm just clueless.
We have a definition of sustainability. It's a one-pager document. It's on the website.
Then fabulous. Half the work is already done and it just becomes something that we sort of repeat. But I do think, like what Miranda's suggesting, that there could be some value in maybe coordinating with some of the department heads. Hey, is there something that we're not thinking of? How are you already applying sustainability? If not, is there a gap? Is there something that we can support you with and help you with to get better at it? I think it's just kind of putting sustainability front and center. But maybe, again, like Melody, like what you're saying is maybe it already is, and there's nothing to be done here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with Nikki and Parks, for example, I think, that is the case. Like I said, with the new public works, they haven't been around long enough, for me to really know. But if they're carrying on a lot of what Chris was doing, then I'm not very concerned. But I think it would be good to have it kind of memorialized in some way. And I like the idea of a checklist where then they don't even have to come to the board. This is just when I'm picking materials, I want to go for, reusable stuff when I can because it's more sustainable or whatever we decide.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's where my feeling is, just let them be a part of that conversation. I think
Yeah.
and you're going there where sometimes it gets frustrating is, boards say, hey, here's what you're going to do, but they don't do the streets maintenance every day. So Mark's going to know way more than all of us, like what is workable, and having that ability to talk it through with him. Because I think some of the challenges, and this is nothing against Chris Pelletier, but these teams do recognize that sometimes what he was striving for wasn't financially viable. And so it led to less than ideal work. And so really being mindful of the desire to complete the job and complete the job well. And where do we do that in the most sustainable way possible? And that's a lot of what I would argue Mark, Nikki, and Andrew are all wrestling with, is that, they have to balance both.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, I personally am not a big fan of the stuff I've been driving on at Big Springs. It does do a good job at suppressing the dust. It does stay a little bit flatter. I'll give it that. But considering what it's made of, I don't know how I feel about it. And I haven't wanted to bring a big discussion because I don't want to burden town staff because they do have to do something about the dust.
But I think that could be one of the situations, Melody, where this board could support, maybe it's because town staff is so limited in the resources.
Yeah.
But if you were to say, hey, you know what, we're going to go research this for you. What are the things that are important? Okay, cost. Oh, okay, X, Y, or Z. I mean, that's just one suggestion. Obviously, you wouldn't have to do it, but I see that as potentially an opportunity to strengthen the sustainability lens, but then also offer the support in some of those high priority goals. Potentially.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I almost wonder if there's some sort of trainings we could look at, and talk to staff if they would be interested about, that we could maybe look for some sort of grant funding or something to support them going to maybe learn these things so that the SAP board isn't researching technical materials that the town is going to use, but that town staff really has that capacity.
Sure. But yeah, pointing them, advising them of potentially where to go.
Yeah.
I do have to say that Leah's done a great job. We're evaluating EV, right? And it's like, we're going to electrify our fleet, and where is it going to work and where is it not going to work? And, Andrew and team and utilities is like, yes, we can do it. And Mark has his concerns. He has his concerns about, the type of terrain in which he has to access in many ways. And same as Nikki. And Leah has been incredible at getting them the information because they don't have time to go research it themselves. And so, yes, that often can create an environment where, you go the easy route. But if someone else is able to support them to say, hey, here, I researched this, that would be great. I just think, it goes back to that priorities. Like, I prioritize the team going out and doing the job, and it can't have, we're only teams of 4, so we can't have one person always in their office. And so I think that is incredible support that can be provided by SAB to say, hey, here's what we found. We'd love to chat with you about it and open up that relationship. And one thing I told Leah when she was hired, I said, the number one thing that I think is most important is to build the relationships with Public Works, because it's not Chris Pelletier, right? We just need to reestablish a lot of these roles and relationships. And Leah's been very present in that way. And I just think that's now's the time that we have solid leaders in these respective roles. And let's now invite them to these conversations.
Thanks, Miranda. I was also going to add that Nikki is very, in my experience, sustainability focused, and that she wants to reuse materials and do the right thing. And she was totally down for my idea to have goats eat the weeds around town, which hasn't worked out yet. But for example, I think it was Andrew who wanted to do a study on how to save water and energy and was seeking grant funding in that respect, and we just haven't found anything yet, but they are very open to suggestions. It's mostly the time that they don't have. They do have some funding, they do have the willingness to do it, but they don't have the time to go look for these things. So that's really where they'd like the support. And going back to what Miranda was saying about the EVs, they were very open to that. And we had, as you may know, we had a Ford Lightning awarded to us, and there was no inventory. And so it's sort of disappointing that they were on board and we couldn't actually execute on that because there was just nothing available. And now that money is spent. So, but also there are concerns with the availability of medium to heavy duty vehicles that just don't exist on the market yet. So I think we're a little ways away from realistically being able to address that for them.
Yeah, so even that example of Andrew needing grant funding for water study. I mean, and this is kind of a similar conversation that we were having with ProSab when we were kind of organizing their goals. Is, you know, Nikki was very vociferous and she was saying, hey, listen, this is what's going to help me the most. And it was actually not any type of grant funding, but it was creating a volunteer program for parks. And so it was really kind of one of those like aha moments for me as a facilitator, where it's like, this is where kind of all this goal setting and this coordinating comes together, in that town staff is asking and, you know, asking for the support from some of the advisory boards, and like, hey, I know advisory board that you're going to have some of the other goals and things that you're going to focus on, but if there's one thing that you could support me on, it's this. And I just thought that was a really beautiful moment that we captured, and it'll probably get prioritized as one of their top goals, ProSab's top goals for the next year and a half.
And I'm happy to, and maybe the next meeting is not the right time, I'm happy to extend the invite. You know, I just would ask, whatever meeting we choose to do this at, that we feel like we're the most ready to have these conversations, because late nights are tough for them, for the fact that they turn around and start at 5, 6. And so, you know, whatever the right format is, just being mindful of what is our actual ask, and maybe we need a little bit more time to flesh that out. But would love to definitely extend the invite when the time is right.
Yeah, I would love for it to be an in-person meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it would need to be a meeting where we have quorum to do in person. But I don't really have a lot for the July agenda. Unless Leah's got anything big, maybe
We have reimagined destinations. Peter couldn't make it tonight because of another meeting conflict, but he would like to present the results of reimagined destinations to the group.
Okay.
So I have that on July.
And I'm sure I will have more to share on the gap analysis and also the grant funding I mentioned. I'm sure I will include that in the next meeting.
And your SAB vacancy meet and greets.
Yeah. So maybe August.
Sure.
And I can also just kind of chat with Nikki between now and then and kind of run it by her and ask her, you know, how she feels about being a part of helping town decide what that might look like. Because I think she would be a good town staff champion for it.
I agree. And I'll bring it up to Mark and Andrew. I think August, I don't think anyone's out. So, because Mark's actually out of town your July SAB meeting anyways.
Okay.
And maybe Miranda, when you talk with them, of just asking, hey, how could, you know, specifically because we're talking about SAB, how could SAB support you? What are some things that, you know, you just can't do or can't get to, or you wonder about if you're doing the right thing from a sustainability standpoint, but you're not sure, kind of, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because we've got some great, technical expertise in town, amongst people that I'm sure also would be willing to share info that would help town, like Jesse Sievers and like, um, what's his name? Kevin Mueller, and other folks that do have specific areas of expertise that could maybe lend their assistance in some way to the SAB boards that could then help, Public Works. Okay. Well, we will maybe touch on this again at the next meeting, but plan to have a real full discussion with folks in August, unless for some reason we have to go virtual and then maybe push it to when we have an in-person meeting. How does that sound to everybody?
Good.
Good.
All right. Any other items to discuss?
I will not be here for our next meeting.
Is there anybody else who won't be here? Okay. Sounds like we will still have quorum, and you can catch up looking at minutes that will maybe be done by a new AI. We'll see. And that's all we got for the meeting. So we will adjourn at 8:46 p.m.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a good